Okay, now we will start. So we will present you here a new feature that is exclusive on the market and that enables to share models between any place on the world and to organize your repositories. So what is the current issue with model repositories currently? The first and the main issue is that generally models are within silos, that is, repositories are very separated, and the result is that the knowledge is spread and poorly shared between teams and people. So another aspect is that what happens is that at best you have a teamwork support, that is, for example, within a project people are cooperating on the same repository, but there is a very poor cooperation between teams because there are no strong mechanisms to share pieces of models between teams and to organize teams. There is presently a paradox between code and models because we see great examples of reuse and share of code at the code level, such as in the open source communities examples with libraries and so on. And we have no such examples at the model level. And this is a paradox, since the best place to share concepts, ideas, high-level aspects is model and not code. And the reason is that there are technical limitations on model repositories to do such cooperation. Other aspects are, for example, if you have a team with distributed people and nomadic people, and you still want that those people cooperate at the model level, depending on their expertise, on the area where they work, and so on. Another aspect is that organizations are now very complex. They can be very open to external cooperation, and also they can be very complex and be part of ecosystems, have offshoring development, subcontractors, partners, consortiums, and so on. That is, you want to do cooperative work at this scale, and but you have levels of responsibilities and management for each partner, and still you want to share models between them. One other aspect is setting up and guaranteeing processes and methods at the enterprise scale. So all this frequently happens at, for example, project scale, at best at business unit scales, but not at enterprise scale, because there is no mechanisms to support federated repositories and shared models at that scale. Also, there is the issue of the expertise diversity, which requires dedicated model access mode depending on people, on their expertise and their responsibilities. That is, you have to access to models with access rights, that is obvious, but also with different views on models. You may be interested in high levels of models, interested in requirements only, or you can be interested in low levels of models. You can be interested on the code level of models, and this depends on your expertise. And another issue is that modeling projects are very often monolithic at the model aspects, and with a difficult ability to decompose projects into autonomous interest and responsibilities areas at the repository level. So those issues makes things difficult now to have shared models at a large scale, and this is a difficulty to manage the knowledge legacy and also to ensure an optimized people cooperation. At best, currently, cooperation is enabled at the project level. So we have this new technique and this new tool called Constellation, and let's see at which level do we need that kind of technique. We here on this graph have two axes. One is the project complexity and the other is the team size. If you take a low project complexity with a small team, for example 1 or 2 people, it may be enough to have a standalone version of Modelio or of another modeling tool, and so you have your repository within your laptop and you work at that level, and that's fine. But for example, if the projects get more complex, if you have sub-projects, if you have variants, if you have a large size of the projects, and then you may need the Constellation technology to manage this. Another axis is the team size, and the bigger the team, the more difficult it is to manage. The more you need to fragment your repository into different pieces, and the more you will need Constellation to do so. When you are at the project level, the teamwork support that provides Modelio or that provides many modeling tools will be enough to manage your team cooperation. But when you have several teams, several variants, several level of interest within the same projects, there you will need Constellation. So underneath Constellation, at the basis, there is the worldwide modeling technology, and this helps you to model network at the federated enterprise scale. So this supports model repositories federations by publishing model fragments on the web. Indeed, the web technologies is a very efficient technique to support sharing of knowledge and cooperation. We know that very well using websites and so on. So there is this notion of fragment. A fragment is a autonomous repository of a model, and model element within a fragment can refer to other fragments available elsewhere in the network. And given this set of fragments, you can define your modeling space, which will be a set of those distributed fragments. And those fragments can be distributed worldwide, so your local class that you are modeling can be related to a requirement that is defined in another fragment that can be elsewhere in the world. And the links between fragments, as it happens for links in the web, can be broken and restored at any time. That is, you refer to another model element in your local fragment, and this the distant fragment is not yet available for any network reason. You just see that that there is an element, and then you cannot access to it. And when this element is back and the network is fine again, then you can navigate through this new model element, just as it happens with URL on the web. Let's see an example to make it clearer. let's have a large enterprise, and here at the enterprise level we have 3 fragments. One fragment is dedicated to define security requirements. Those requirements must be applied anywhere for any projects in the enterprise. There are also risk requirements, and there is the business architecture fragment. So those fragments are defined at the enterprise level. And now let's imagine this is done in the headquarters of the enterprise, say in New York, for example. Now we are in a business unit of this company at the project level, elsewhere in the world, say in Paris, for example, and we want to define a project for the business unit that abides by what has been defined at the enterprise level. So we define locally in Paris our requirement with a fragment that we define locally in Paris. And this fragment will be related to the security requirements and risk requirement fragments, which are made available from New York. And we have this project in red, which is the requirement definition project. Then we implement the project, and we make a new project which will define 2 fragments, business analysis and design, and this will be made by a subcontractor, say in the UK, that will make the model of the project and its design. So this subcontractor will be related to the business architecture fragment and to the requirements fragments that we have defined previously. And he will manage locally the business analysis and design fragment. And then we have another project dedicated to tests, and this project will be made by a third subcontractor who will be based in Bangalore in India, for example, and he will have a local fragment and relate to the design fragment that has been made by the subcontractor 1 and the requirement fragment that has been made by our business unit in Paris. And so we see here that we have a disseminated organization, and that here we have a federated organization, and that we can map the repository organization to the reorganization of the ecosystem that we have built for this situation. So this clarifies a little bit the interest of fragments in this situation. But now we have to manage those fragments, and there comes the interest of Constellation. So what are the main functions of Constellation? The first one is the portfolio management function, which, for example, manages projects catalog, the fragment organization, inter-project links, version and variants for projects. It also manages resource allocation, that is the participant within projects, and the profile of those participants, that is their access rights and also their expertise. Their expertise will be the kind of technique that we need, that they need to do the model, which within Modelio corresponds to what we call modules. Another aspect is communication, that is publication reports, dashboard, project information such as news, changes, and so on. And this will be illustrated by a demo shown just after. So one other aspect of Constellation is that it manages the configuration changes. That is, imagine you establish a project, you define the role, you define the parameters of the project and so on, and it's shared between different people that work on different workstations. And frequently, parameters and configurations evolves. You have new versions of libraries, of modules. You change parameters for the team. And frequently, this can be a very difficult task. And it happens that all participants are not up to date. So this is a major aspect with Constellation, is that there is no effort and there is no inconsistency between participants, because Constellation automates these aspects. So simply, the project manager changes the configuration. He has a web GUI to do so on modules, parameters, libraries. And when a participant connects to the project, this is just a matter of using a URL and giving his ID and password. Then the participant automatically gets an up-to-date configuration related to what has been defined at the project level. So this is a cool feature of Constellation. So Constellation supports the organization, which can have multiple business units. For example, to provide portfolio management, multi-project management, reuse and dependencies management. It also supports organizations, federations. That is, you may have distributed repositories, responsibilities, rights, governance issues, cooperation and reuse management issues that are managed by constellations. Ecosystem, consortium, subcontracting can also be managed. You can have multiple constellation sites that manage the configuration of each participant who share fragments and pieces of models between them. Constellation also support processes related to modeling with the support of participants' profiles. There could be a connection to LDAP, for example, or there could be a coupling to process and quality tools such as Mantis, which is already on the shelf, or on demand could be with Jira, HPQC, and so on. Constellation supports version and configuration management through Subversion. It supports administration, storage issues. It can support a document portal to centralize the produced documentation, which can be in HTML format. It can also provide statistic reports such as projects, activities, bugs, and so on. And it can support any model-related procedure which can be automated, such as production of reports, production of code, autonomous integration, and so on. Continuous integration, and so on. So with Constellation, you have many ways to organize your repositories and servers. There is one figure where everything is centralized. So here we have Constellation that hosts the administration data, such as the users, the projects, and so on. And it hosts also the model data that could be in the form of subversion storage, managing version and team cooperation, are also HTTP fragments which are published to be accessible from elsewhere. So here we have 3 teams with a centralized Constellation server. Another aspect is to have several servers for model servers. And the biggest flow of data is supported by model access. So it could be interesting to have several model servers in the world. So you can have teamwork dedicated servers with the SVN servers. That is the version and configuration is managed using Subversion underneath. And here you have three teams which have a teamwork cooperation managed through SVN. And you have also HTTP servers. Those servers are used to publish model fragments that are used from different teams. And you see that each team organizes itself by connecting to different servers, and all of the administration data is centralized in a Constellation server, which has a light level of network access need. So there are many ways to organize federated organizations using this technique. And as I said previously, when you use the subversion fragment mode, then you have version management, concurrent access management, configuration, branches, diff merge, which is managed by this transparently. That is, people don't see subversion. It is accessed through Modelio.